Unbound Woman podcast. I am your host, Niamh, a feminine embodiment and sexual empowerment coach. And I am here to bring you to a deeper level of desire, pleasure, intimacy, and love in your life. Through the methods of somatic work, sensuality work, sexuality, pleasure, and learning to use your voice, I help you come home to your body and find those deeper connections for yourself. On this podcast, we're going to talk about so many different topics, from boundaries to consent, to sexuality, to sensuality, to finding out what your pleasures are, and on the way, help you to become the unbound woman that you were here to be. We will also have special guests on talking about their unbound woman journey and what it means to them to be an unbound woman. So, grab a glass of red wine or a cup of cacao, sit on the couch, light yourself some sensual incense and listen in, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Hello my lovelies, and welcome back to the Unbound Woman podcast. I have a little bonus episode for you here today. This is a throwback episode from my original podcast called Niamh's Nuggets, which you can still find on Spotify. And during Niamh's Nuggets time, I had a lot of different guests on, but one of the special ones that I recorded was actually the most listened to podcast of Niamh's Nuggets, and that was with my beautiful partner Liam. And it is an incredible episode. There was so much in it, and the reason why I want to reshare it here is because I really feel that any woman or man who is listening to this podcast specifically might get a lot from it. We talk about all things about our relationships, how we have navigated certain things, our communication styles, learning that your other half doesn't necessarily have to be spiritual like you are for the relationship to work, right? We also talk about BDSM, our sex life, and there's just so much juicy goodness in there. I think it's an hour and a half worth of an episode, and I'm just really excited to share it because he is going to come back on the podcast. We actually have something really special, hopefully in the works over the next few months, and I'm really just excited to put this on here, have it there for anybody who wants to listen to a couple talking about how they've navigated things. And just so you know, this was recorded in December 2022, so a lot has changed. I'm forever growing, he's forever growing, so yeah, have a listen, and hopefully we'll record a new one over the next few weeks and we'll be able to launch part 2. But thank you so much for listening, and I'm sending you all my love. Niamh's Nuggets podcast. I'm so excited for episode 3. We are going to have the first of our guests, which is going to be my other half, Liam. We're going to talk all things relationship, kind of maybe awakening for myself, how to deal with these things through a relationship. And I'm going to say it's only going to be one episode, but we could have parts to this. We don't know what's going to happen. We've just had a lovely little date evening where it will be on Instagram hopefully before this airs, so have a look over there. But we had a little date night where Liam had bought one of those body casting sets. You usually use it for pregnant women wanting to get a cast of their bump, but we used it on myself, and I will kind of let him talk a little bit more about that when he's on. But yeah, we've just had a really lovely evening and decided we would record this podcast. So yeah. Hi, Liam. Hi, baby.
Hello.
He definitely sounds like he wants to be here.
I wasn't dragged here unwillingly by any means necessary.
It's such a lie. You totally want to come on.
Of course I do. Always. Love the sound of my own voice, really, that's it.
Well, that's very true, yeah. And I mean, you're so loud, the neighbours will probably hear you anyway. So
with the neighbours around, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
But yeah, no, I'm really excited to have you on. I think this is going to be quite fun. But firstly, what will I ask? I have come completely unprepared. But first of all, maybe we'll ask about the little date night we had and what your idea was and where it came from, and
the PG parts or the R-rated,
the explicit. I don't mind marking this episode explicit. I haven't done it for any of the curse words anywhere else, but here, why not? As long as like a young child doesn't stumble upon this, we're okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe give a little insight into what we did this evening and where the idea came from.
Yeah, so as Niamh said, it's a casting kit that should be for pregnancies, or it was a pregnancy casting kit. For anyone that's obviously got children or had children, maybe it's something that they've done or wish they did throughout their pregnancies. But it's obviously not the reason because, disclaimer, no, we are not with child. That's probably, we should have started that with that component. We are not with child. Yet, who knows? One of these days, I might get looped into, or be forced into that part of it. However, the idea came up probably a few months ago. We've actually had the kit for a good few months. And I had the idea a few months before that. I kind of just got it out of the blue in purchasing it. The idea came from, I think, a lack of, or sorry, a poor vision that you had on yourself. Coming on the back of, the famous C word, COVID, there was obviously nobody, I mean, either the people did very well out of it and ended up all the six packs, or people were the complete opposite. Put on a few pounds, like a lot of us when the gyms were closed. We're both quite active, and just being locked down to that, it didn't fend well. Nor did it fend well for anyone's mental health. That goes without saying. But obviously with the mental health side, it then had a knock on and physical. We had both put on, I think, a little bit of weight over that time. And obviously then that has a knock on even as things do open back up, or as you start putting on, when you get out of your pajamas again that you've worn for a year and a half and start putting on the clothes again, that starts to hit really hard home. It's like, these don't fit me the same way that they used to. And I think, look, if there's any man or woman, I think, listening to this, I think they'll understand that. I think any men that potentially might be listening to this will understand listening to their other half say, for fuck's sake, this doesn't fit me. I have to go shopping again. And again, if you're not a man listening to this, you may resonate with that a little bit as well. And I could see very much so how it had affected Niamh and how it had got to her and maybe not appreciated. And it's quite funny because before all of this, and maybe before putting on a little bit of weight, there was always the point of, I'd like to be, a little thicker, hairier. I'd like to be curvier, I think was the famous words. I'd like to have more of a womanly shape.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I spoke about this in a previous podcast. I did. If not, I spoke on Jen's podcast about this, but I actually had body dysmorphia or disordered eating for quite some time, where I had been down at 50 kilos for so long. I was so tiny, and putting on muscle, particularly around the glutes, was such a big thing for me. And then, like, even before COVID, I was still only 55, 59 kilos. I was tiny. And then obviously I came out of that world. So yeah, I mean, I had always dreamt of being thicker, and I mean, sure, careful what you wish for, really, at the time. But I mean, I'm definitely happier now, but it's still been a transition, I think.
And yet I've always been of the theory, thick thighs save lives.
Muffs.
Thick thighs or earmuffs, that's all they are. Not all, but so exactly on the back of that, and obviously it had really affected. There was so many days where I would see or notice either Niamh genuinely crying or just very upset in her own figure. And like, they're very obviously being in a relationship with the way that we are, it's very noticeable, a change in mood or something, and it's very apparent of where those things will hit, or just even hearing about it. And in the nicest way, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but I was sick of hearing about it. Sick of hearing about it in the regards to, I hate, there's so little I can do, apart from encourage, but there's little that I can do for Niamh to change her perspective over how she feels about herself. And then there was days where it would pick up, and then there'd be days where it's down, and that's, the comings and goings of life. The idea with the casting was actually to pick out a day when Niamh actually wasn't feeling good. It just so happens we had meant to do this quite some time ago, but just life got busy, as it always does. So we picked tonight to do it. The idea was really to do it maybe on a day where Niamh wasn't feeling great about herself, or where those negative thoughts were creeping in, and there was a lack of appreciation over her own shape and figure as a woman, and the woman that she has developed into over time, and the boobies that she's grown, which are magnificent, and my dad, um, and to cast that in all of its glory, and then the parts of the casting, or the steps, to for anyone that hasn't done this before, but the steps of the casting are: you do a first cast off the body, you pull it off, you let it dry 24 hours, you kind of like add a little bit more to it and fix up some of the edges, you tidy it up type of thing. And then from there, you can sand it down, smooth it into the perfect shapes that you kind of want. You've already got your general figure. You don't make a mold out of it. That's the only difference. This is genuinely just like a plaster Paris, paper mache, like a cast that you would have when you break your own, that type of concept. So then we have that, and then afterwards the concept will be for Niamh to sit down and paint it or decorate it as she sees fit, and then draw, paint, or write on terms of love and endearment and appreciation over all of the areas. Every curve, every bump, every shape, every thing that is symmetrical and non-symmetrical, everything in a sign of appreciation and love for her figure as it is, so that she can remember these and have that in next to your altar, or in your own room, in your own space. And I'm happy to have it out and open. I'm very happy for that. But even I think it would benefit in your own space, where you do sit and meditate, and where you do spend so much time, that you can glance at yourself now, the days where you're not feeling in love with your own figure, that you can look quite quickly and say, actually, fucking, I'm an idiot. Look at that. I love that. And that's what I love. And this is where I love it. That's how I love it. I love there. I love there. And you may hate and love yourself all in one moment. And that's where the idea came from. And that's what I wanted from it.
I think that's, first of all, I found it a really beautiful idea. When I first arrived, I was looking at it and I was like, is he trying to tell me something about my body that I don't know? Which, for anybody who may know our connection, Liam is very good at understanding and knowing where my body is at before I even do. So like, I don't need a period tracking app. I have a Liam. Like, I'll be sitting there like, oh, I feel like my period's going to come on X day, and he'll just turn to me and be like, no, it won't be. He'll pick a random day, and then that's when it'll fall. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether he's some form of bear. Well, you kind of are. Some form of bear that can smell it coming. I'm not too sure, but it's yeah, he's always been very in tune with my body. Even when I haven't been, and it was really beautiful, just kind of the idea of it, and I really loved it. And the reason I wanted to bring it up on the podcast particularly is that for anybody out there who's looking for like date night ideas, and for any men out there who maybe is feeling a bit like Liam did with myself, that you want not only for your woman to love herself and her own body no matter where it's at, but also for you to show her that appreciation. Because actually, even though I knew throughout this the idea of the cast is for me, but Liam did all of the work on it. Like, he molded it, he put the plastering strips on, he worked in it, and it was just a really beautiful, intimate moment where it wasn't necessarily sexual. And not that that's a bad thing in terms of, obviously sex in a relationship is really important, but sometimes having something where you don't feel as a woman that you have to perform in a way.
Non-sexual intimacy.
Yeah, non-sexual intimacy. And that's also really, really important in a relationship, because there are times where neither person really wants to have sex, or you're too tired, or you're going through stressful times. But it was just a really beautiful idea, and that kind of segues then into my whole journey and maybe a bit of our backstory, really. So Liam and I are officially together actually this weekend, 3.5 years. We had 2.5 years on and off previous to that, but we won't get into that. But we got together in June 3.5 years ago. And from there, our relationship kind of moved very quickly, because it was an all-in kind of commitment. We had decided it was either all in or not at all. And we got together in June, and in November, 3 or 4 months just before COVID, we moved in together out in Malahide. So talk about out of the frying pan and into the fire. As I said, COVID started a few months later, and for anyone who knows me, I'm actually from the south side of Dublin. I'm actually from Dundrum. So when the 5 kilometre kind of stretch came in, I was really shut off from quite a close family connection I would have been in. You know, wherever I had lived, my both sets of grandparents were no more than 10 or 15 minutes away. Obviously, all my siblings lived at home, and most of my friends were from up that way as well, like my cousin. And I was really kind of cut off from everything. And then obviously being brought out of work, we were both working from home in this little 2-bed apartment. Now it was a beautiful apartment, but the walls started getting small really quickly. And to say to get through COVID is one thing when you're only living together a few months, but then obviously in the midst of all of this, I decided I was having my spiritual awakening. And that kind of changed the trajectory of our relationship. I don't think either of us, when we said we were all in, could have ever envisaged this is where we'd end up. And not just in County Galway. But I don't think either of us, realised the trajectory our relationship was going to go through from there. And what I do want to let everybody know is that when I decided to start doing the work, it was my choice. And there was no real ultimatum obviously given to you, particularly at the time. It was just more of like, I'm going to start doing this work with my coach at the time, and we're just going to see what happens, because I was in a really bad place at that point. I mean, I'd been in a bit of a downward spiral for a few years.
And that's the counselling.
And then I was in counselling, but just before COVID and then during COVID, which didn't really seem to be helping anything. I was being more triggered than anything else and kind of being sent on my merry way. So
there are, and I will speak for, there is plenty of counsellors which are fantastic. There is something in particular, and I remember saying it even way back in the early days of it, while you were still seeing, there was something about her that I did feel like it was, oh, here's my cash cow, I'm gonna just keep this one going. And that's really sad to say, and I don't think that is a perspective of all counsellors, by no means. There are plenty that are absolutely fantastic, and I think there are more that are fantastic and very helpful than there are ones that are not helpful. However, I just think in the instance, yeah, she was literally winding you up like a spin top, and then you come home and just release like an elastic band over the next few days of just anguish, and without actually resolving or help work through certain components. It was, let's prod the bear continuously and then send it on its merry way, and then but we'll have you back next week and we'll prod you some more.
Yeah.
We'll do it again and we'll do it again. Week on week, I think every week or every 2 weeks.
It was a week, and then I went down to 2 weeks for a while, and then she suggested going back to every week.
Yeah, and I was like, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And there was no headway, in my opinion. There was nothing that was actually worked through.
Oh no, and our relationship at that point, not that either of us really wanted to leave, but there was a point where I was like, if this keeps going the way it's going, it's not going to survive.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like even through this journey, we have been through what I like to call in our relationship kind of death portals, because there are aspects of our relationship, not that they had to die, but they had to transform. They had to go through the death and rebirth process, I think, throughout a lot of this relationship, and it triggered both of us. So, you know, when I really started this work, as I said, it wasn't really Liam's choice to come on with me. And he just slowly decided, well, it wasn't really that you slowly decided. It's just, I mean, when you're having the work reflected to you, you can either choose to see it or choose to ignore it. And I suppose I was becoming conscious in it. And then from that, you were conscious in it as well. And you've always been quite self-aware anyway. But kind of took this all to a whole new level. And I think what I see a lot in the spaces and what I struggled with so much was that I was one of the only people in my close friends, or even the group that I seem to call in, who actually was actively doing this work in a relationship. So many people did this single, and I know there was days you even said to me, you're like, this could probably be easier for you single in a way, but there's also a point where, yeah, maybe it would have been, but I would have had to get into a relationship at some point and these triggers would have been there. So I kind of did the single work and the relationship work all in one go. And I don't think there's a lot of people who speak out about that. And it's something I know I have to be more conscious about speaking out about, because I see it now with a lot of people getting into relationships now, which are really beautiful, but they're still being triggered. Their triggers are just, they have more awareness around them, I suppose, than what I did when we first went into this together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's even with a lot of the guidance, even throughout your journey, a lot of your guidance has actually been based off, or the path of being able to self-investigate, because you are relearning yourself.
Mm.
A lot of it has been set in such a way as the way that someone else would have done it in when they were single.
Yeah.
And there's obviously not necessarily compromises, but there is respect in a relationship. That means certain things, you don't jump head first. I think in a relationship you don't jump head first into something without being thoughtful to your other half. It's like having kids. You don't jump into going, we're going on holiday. You have to go, right, do the kids have time off school? Do they have this? Do they have that? Do they have the other? And it's the same kind of concept. It's not always compromise. It's like, yes, I want to do this, but I need to be mindful, or I would like to be mindful of the other person in those instances and take those into consideration as well. Like, how do I do it? At what pace? And I still remember, and it still comes up at times, but I remember there was a few real trigger points for me. The pace that you were going at, I was like, because I'm very happy to say that I'm not necessarily active in this space or in the same way that you are.
No.
It's been much more passive. I do think that I've learned over time, I think men and women work a little bit differently in this way, and I think that's a really big point. And I think certain people that maybe chase from a male perspective, chasing that can lead to certain different aspects. However, I think that because you were very actively pursuing, trying to deal with stuff, how to face stuff, how to conquer stuff, how to deal with triggers, how to deal with this, how to realize yourself, and how to find a deeper understanding of who you are at your core, and kind of relearn who you are. Because I wasn't actively pursuing that myself in the same way that I felt, I was like, shit, she's going too fast. I'm being left behind. Or, as a very common concern, and one of the things that we had in the 2.5 years, as Niamh brought up there, that I can hold my hand up at, I've been horrendously bad for in every past relationship in the past, was my trust issues. They have ruined almost every past relationship for me, guaranteed. I know that. I can see that now. I'm very open to that, but I wouldn't have it any other way, because it wouldn't bring me to where I am. But they did ruin past relationships, and I hold my hand up to that. And they have absolutely had impacts in the first 2.5 years, where we were kind of on and off, kind of seeing each other but not committed. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
But my realization whenever I said I want to actually give it a go, and I want to kind of go balls to the wall, straight in, and I want to kind of jump in the deep end and fully commit. When I said that meant I'm going to park this trust issue, and although it won't be perfect, and I remember saying that to you, it won't be perfect, and I will have some issues, but I need to park that one, and I need to kind of park it for good. But I do remember that was one of the things that came up as a trigger point to me and it came up, I think, one through the darker periods of the early stages of this before you went on this path.
Yeah.
Because you were in a little bit of a dark place mentally. But it came up again as you had accelerated so fast in this space. I was like, damn it, she's just going to leave me for someone who is on her level doing this, so invested in. And I think that's actually, funnily enough, something that we see often with other people that are single.
Yeah.
And they are only looking for someone that is actively pursuing something in the space or actively working on themselves in such a way. And it's fair enough. If you have that set as an expectation, it's completely understandable. If you want to meet at that level and you want someone to at least, because there's less to understand or less to try and sit and explain in that moment. That person can get you from earlier on and you have more to correlate with. Whereas when you don't, if someone you were coming from very, polar opposites, it really would be polar opposites and maybe too much. So it's understandable, but,
Yeah, and I think that's something that for the first while when I did, and like I did accelerate so quickly. I'm very aware I did, particularly, and like I look even back on the last 3 months and I completely changed again as a person, but I think the expression of how it came through so quickly was so vastly different. I became interested in so much. But what actually used to trigger me at the beginning was the fact that you weren't into any of this stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, obviously you have been the photographer at almost all of my events, along with, you've been part of it at some point. But for me, when I did start this work and you weren't getting into cacao and you weren't getting into crystals and you weren't getting into tarot or Reiki or whatever it was, there was a part of me that was incredibly triggered by that. But and this is advice I would give to anybody who's working with somebody else in this space, what I had to come to realize was that's my stuff. Because they're all external elements anyway. And just because that's how I do the work doesn't mean that's how you should do the work. And I feel I've seen this come through a lot of people where, people or clients will say it to me, or I've been in spaces where other women have spoken about the same thing. And you're like, well, just because he doesn't like cacao doesn't mean you have to break up with him. But there does come a point in the relationship where, like you said, you could see the accelerated growth between me and what had happened, and you had a choice. Your choice was either, right, do I need to look at some of my stuff and change? And you did that in your own way. Liam didn't go to a coach. He's done all this work internally himself. Or you had a choice to stay exactly where you were and to see where the relationship went from there. And I think that's a big thing, because we have it in our heads that there's this expectation that, because they love us, they have to come along with it. No, they don't. And I used to say this to you, I wake up every morning and I choose to be in this relationship because I want to be. I love you. And I know you wake up every morning and you choose to be in this relationship. I know sometimes you probably feel like you don't. I'm joking.
I guarantee you it's not your morning face. It's not the thing that clinches me into the relationship.
Didn't stop you the other morning, did it? Doesn't stop you though, does it, babe? But I really feel like, when we look at relationships, I think a lot of people are looking for, and of course there are plenty of men in this space. I've seen it. I've been in space with men like this, like who are in this space, and that's okay. I don't, obviously I've said to you, it would never bother me if you decided to step into space. If you found your own thing in this space and you wanted to hold space for men and women or just women, that wouldn't bother me, because I believe if that's supposed to be where you're going to go, that's amazing. But I don't think that's an ultimatum of our relationship. Of if you don't do X, Y, and Z, we can't be together. But it was made very clear that if I keep growing and there wasn't this choice to somewhat come along with me, that we were going to probably have to go our separate ways at some point.
Potentially.
But I don't think...
Provided, I think it would be more so that I wasn't... I don't know if I agree 100%. Only in the fact of, it wouldn't have mattered if you had kept on an accelerated path. if it came to the point where I was holding you back from that, I
Yeah.
think that would have been a point where there would have to be a separation of ways and wills.
Mm.
The fact that I was, and again, I obviously came through naturally, where I was ended up supporting a lot of these steps. Or my choice was to support you in a lot of this, whether it be being the photographer behind a lot of the scenes or getting you out to visit places. Like we would do random date days where I'd pick out 3, 4, 5 historic or megalithic ancestral landmarks around kind of our area or even further afield, and we'd go out for like a little road trip and we'd go and visit them. Something to root Niamh to the ground. Do I feel the need, and I think this is probably a way for a lot of people to be able to resonate with it, do I feel the need to root myself into the ground? Not always. Very rarely, actually.
You're quite grounded though as a person.
But that's it. That's maybe my character. Whereas there are days where you feel I need to get out to the ground and put my feet on the damn ground. I have very rarely felt that. Not that I'm. It doesn't mean that I'm some majestic person that doesn't need to be grounded. I just feel it is my character that maybe that's not how I maybe need to ground myself. Or another way to potentially look at it is you will do cacao, you'll sit, you'll meditate. I have no real interest too much in cacao. Meditation has not necessarily been something for me. I have done it at times in the past, but it's not necessarily been a massive thing for me. I have no aversion to it. Or you will kind of freshen yourself or kind of recharge yourself by jumping in the freezing cold sea. And, that's kind of like a cleansing of sorts.
Yeah.
Do I want to do that? No, because it's fucking cold. However, what do I like to do? I like to get out on the bike.
Hiking.
I like intense hiking. I don't think hiking is probably for a lot of people.
It's like running an assault course with Liam because he was...
It's old habits.
Yeah.
It's old habits that I like, and it's how I've hiked in the past. But I like to do it, somewhat intensely. But biking is a really common one for me, or the gym. I really enjoy working out. I've done it for a long time. It's something I'm very passionate about. And I work out pretty intensely and pretty hard. Do you have to come with me to do all of that with me? Do you have to train with me? No. Do you have to come out on the bike with me every single time? No. Do you sometimes? Yeah, sure. Do I come and do cacao with you sometimes? Yeah, I do. Do I sit with you in those spaces and moments with you at times? Yeah, I do. Do I come to some of your ceremonies and photograph with it and sit with it and inadvertently sometimes give a masculine energy there? Yeah, I do. Because I care about you and I want to support you in that moment. It doesn't mean that I have to be 100% in that, but I will support in that moment. And I think it's equally allowing that person to explore that version of themselves. And there are plenty of, most of the times, I'd say 90% of the time, I'm a biker. I get out on the bike on my own, or I'd go with, a buddy of mine, if that be the case, or just on my own. And I'll spend 12 to 15 hours out on the bike and I'll leave it sometime in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'll come home at midnight. That's the type of thing, I like long days out on the bike. And it allows me to have that time to myself, but also allows me to explore that version of me and something that I love. And equally, it's something that you love. And it has no negative, I think, impact to the other person. And I think that's something to realise.
Yeah, and I think this is what I tend to, I speak to people about this all the time, and there's how I see a relationship, or how I usually define it, is there's two beautiful people, right, who've met each other. You call them what you want, soulmates, twin flames, whatever connotation of the world, but you have
big spoon and little spoon.
Big spoon and little spoon. Yeah, let's go with that. Somebody you if you believe in past lives, soul contracts with, whatever it is. But I have my path, right? And let's say that's right in front of me, and my purpose is down the end. Liam has his path and his purpose, whatever it is down the end. Our relationship is like a little piece in the middle where it kind of comes together. we can walk both on our paths with our eye on our purposes and then turn to the relationship and give it the time that we know our relationship needs. The problem arises, I feel, with a lot of this work is where one person, because they're afraid to let go of the other, turns and is like fully facing their purpose. So like if you're constantly focused on my purpose, you're no longer looking at where you're going, you're looking solely at me. And that's where I feel a lot of the time issues can arise, because the other person's forgetting about themselves completely, and then you end up somewhere in 10-15 years in resent. And I think we have been really good over time where, yes, you were so good to support me and I'd support you all the time. It's even Liam has been out on the bike in weeks, God love him, because Galway apparently is the wettest county in the world, which I was not aware of. And like, it's a dry weekend and we like to spend at least one day of the weekend together, but like my first reaction when I saw that was like, just go. I mean, if you're not here for the weekend, it doesn't matter.
And then what did it do today anyway?
Fucking rained. But what I'm trying to say is like, I can support him and what he wants and what his lifestyle is, but I also have to remember that there's times where I need to come back and look at what I was doing. And this is where a lot of my codependency came up at the beginning of the relationship, because again, we were thrown into COVID. It was just the two of us. And my codependency literally thrived on that. And it became a part where I was just constantly looking after what I thought you needed. I probably drove you fucking mad for a while.
You do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah. But this is kind of what had happened. And I think we've come so far away from that now that we have this understanding between one another of like, I'll go out on a Friday night. I will always say it to you first. I mean, I don't ask permission. That's not what we do here. It's not what we do. But it's more of like, I'll be like, do we have any plans? Or sometimes Liam will come into me like, do we have any plans for the weekend? And I'm like, no. And he's like, right, I'm going to go X, Y, and Z, or such and such coming down, or I want to do this. Do you want to come with me? It's the same for me. I've like, we're not doing anything Friday night. I'm going to go to ecstatic dance, or the girls have something on, and we're always quite encouraging and trying to be mindful as well that the relationship also gets time, because when you start living together, I think people forget to nurture the relationship. I think it's just so easy to come in every evening and sit down and have dinner and watch TV. And like, we watch a lot of seasons of stuff together, because when I pick something I like to watch, Liam then decides he enjoys it.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's never happened.
That has happened all the time.
Yeah, no, it does.
And what?
Fairness, you just have great choice.
I've just got great taste. I mean,
it's me.
That's why I'm with you. Yeah. What can I say, guys? I have great choice. Great taste. But yeah, I think we forget to nurture that side of our relationship. And not us. Well, I mean, we probably did during COVID because it was so hard to have a date night. But I mean, we did pizza nights.
We did.
Where we did hope. Well, yeah, that's probably
why we put on weight.
That's why here in the mold, one titty is bigger than the other titty.
That's a pizza titty.
That's a pizza titty. And that was when I went vegan.
Just for clarity, we are now pointing at the cast that's sitting in front of like the fire, drying it, like trying to harden it quicker.
Yeah. But I think it's good to kind of do things. And yeah, of course, like, we're both big foodies, particularly Liam. Any of my friends who are listening to this, they understand. But we like to go out on dates. But there's something nice about changing it up. Like, we're going back to a comedy club next week.
Yeah, it gets expensive when we go out for food too often.
Yeah, so we kind of have to be careful.
Yeah.
Considering I've just come out of a full-time job. We have to be careful in a way. But, we can go and do other things or find little events to go to. We'd like to, at some point, maybe attend some form of Latin dance class. You never know. You never know what we get up to. But I think... What?
That sounds like orgies or something. That's not orgies. Just for clarity. Again, clarity is everything here.
I have to leave them guessing.
Yeah. You never know what we get up to. Orgies and swinger clubs.
I mean...
Weirdly enough, I don't know, but I hope that Galway does not have that. It probably bloody does, though.
I'd be intrigued to walk in and be like, oh, hey, Remember you from the cafe. But yeah, I think it's been a massive wild ride for both of us. We've gone through, as I said, quite a lot of death portals. Like there have been times where the two of us have sat here, and it's not that we want to separate, but it's become to this realization of like, right, this part of our relationship needs to change. And it's not just necessarily down to me, it's down to us as people both growing. It's down to society changing, our views, our values changing, our living space changing. Like it's been a lot of work, and not in a bad way. Like it's been just about as much work as I've put into my self-healing and my growth. The relationship has had to do that with us because we both brought baggage. We couldn't not have. And I know I've challenged you a lot on what's come up for you, and not in an actual challenging way, but when some of my triggers come up, I mean, there's days where it can't not be triggering for you, particularly if it's something that's happened to you in your childhood or something that came up from your own background as well. Not that we have to go into that, but you know, we trigger the shit out of each other quite often. I've got a lot better now at not being as reactive as I used to. I can't say I'm always not going to be. I still do, and I think
I guarantee you she's still a pain in the ass.
but that's another thing as well. I think there's this idealism out there at the moment of like when we've done this work, particularly without a partner, that we're going to call in this amazing person who we're never going to have these issues with. And it's like, actually, if you go by the law of the world or the law of attraction, you're going to bring in somebody into your life who's going to reflect the crap out of everything that's going on for you. And that doesn't matter if they're doing the work. It doesn't matter if they're 10 years ahead of you doing the work or 3 years behind, or you're as self-aware as they come. They're still going to trigger you. It's what you do with that trigger. Are you going to project or are you going to react? And it's more of sitting there and just understanding that that's what you're going to bring up in each other always. I mean,
I think as well, there's it's something that we touched on there earlier, or I think I mentioned it, was people do it differently.
yeah,
And I think that has to be remembered. Like people deal with things very differently. People do the work differently. People have realizations differently. This is only from my perspective, having been around you and many other women in this space. I've been around some men in this space as well. But the women in this space that I have seen, and that's only from what I have seen, do it from a very different perspective, that maybe I would conquer something within myself, or that I would deal with something in myself. Now, I say conquer because when I face things, I think it's a hurdle to overcome. And I think it's just my maybe analogy of something. For me, it's not necessarily always sitting and contemplating and figuring out why I've got there, why I feel that way. It's maybe, how do I compose myself within that to not feel that way again, if it is something that could be negative in the back of it, or sometimes to just feel that way again, because sometimes that isn't the thing that you need. But I have noticed that there are definitely, and I think that's maybe sometimes a common blocker, or maybe it's a common lack of realization that because you, and I mean this as the royal you, have done something, or you're facing something in a particular way, you expect everyone to sit and deal with their same issues in the same way.
Yeah.
You must, when I have X problem or X trigger that hits me, I must sit, meditate, think through it, understand how I felt that way, what I need to do about that, if I need to resolve certain issue within myself or not, or whether I am, what I need to do in the back of it. Whereas the next person to your left or to your right might do it a completely different way. I have noticed that between male and female, there is often very different ways in doing it. Not for all male and female, I think it depends on the individual, but I have noticed that there are drastically different ways in approaching it. And that could be across anyone. I think there's plenty of females that probably could deal with things in the same way that I do with them. And then there are maybe males that deal with them in the way that you deal with them.
Yeah, and that's, I think, what I was getting at when I was talking about the idea of me being like going into the spiritual realm of it all and becoming very big into crystals and Reiki and cacao ceremonies. It's more about not just because somebody's different to you, because we're all unique, right? So just because you do things differently to me doesn't mean that I can't um yeah, it doesn't mean that we can't be together because you don't do it like I do, you know? And yeah, I just think with all, but we have to remember that with all beings, this isn't just even in a relationship. Like when I think about clients, you know, I will feel into how a client's deals with things. And yeah, of course, there's a lot of times that the way we do, or the way we would naturally want to deal with things does come from a maybe a past way of dealing. So I would have always dealt with things in a form of either being extremely upset, or there would have been a part of suppression. There is a difference. But, you know, for me, I really found myself over the last few months that I was almost sitting in it no matter what. And it was because I was like, oh, I need to find out what this is. I need to heal that. I need to make sure that that's out of my system because I need to move through it. And actually what I found myself doing was I was just constantly sitting in a state of anxiousness and stress and wondering where the next hurdle was coming from. And that wasn't healthy for me either. This work can also bring up other unhealthy attributes. And with that comes the idea of like, imagine me saying that to my client, like, no, you have to sit in everything. You have to revel in it all. You have to make sure that every time something comes up for you that you deal with it this way. And I know I spoke about this in one of my last podcasts about sitting in the suffering and trying to make sure that every time, even if it's only a small layer of something, to try and find the joy afterwards. And for myself, I just feel like that was such a big learning curve from our relationship to understand that people do things differently rather than making people do everything the same way, because then we're just being the exact same as a kind of like a religion in a way, saying that the only way you can pray is going to church on a Sunday, or the only way you can honor God or the divine is through this way. It's the exact same thing I would be basically doing if I said to every client, no, this is how you have to heal things. And that's where I think a lot of this comes from as well. And that's what it's brought through our relationship, you know? Um,
I would agree. I would agree.
sorry. Yeah, don't zone out, babe. It's fine.
Huh?
I'm joking. I said, don't zone out, babe. It's cool.
I was putting wood on the fire, trying to keep us warm and cozy on our romantic and lovely date night. Gosh, the appreciation that I get in this. Do you know what? All the work that I do.
The work that you do. Oh, let me get you a medal. We shall throw him a party, shall we? I love you, really. I am grateful for you. But what I also would like to ask you is, obviously, we have discussed this ourselves on many an occasion about how different I am. No, not anal.
Oh.
As different I am as a person.
Worth a try. I thought she was going to ask finally.
And
she put it in my butt.
No.
That's for a later podcast. Stay tuned, folks.
Do one unconscious BDSM actually. But where was I? Yeah, so obviously I'm not the same girl, woman, person that I was when we first got together, or even when you met me 2.5 years previous. That's what, 6 years.
Your original name was Claire, and now you're called Niamh. I don't know. Either that or the sex change. I'm not really sure what's happened that's so different.
I have an oversized clit, okay.
Jesus Christ.
I'm gonna have to put an explicit note.
Yeah, I think so.
But I do hope my mother doesn't listen to this. Sorry, Mom.
Sorry, Dad.
But yeah, as I said, I'm obviously drastically different. to who I am, who I was when we first got together. And I would like your point of view on that in terms of, how do I put it? Like, not whether it's a better change, but just how maybe you navigated the change or the realization. Because for me, I've really had to, over the last while, actually go back and accept that old Niamh that I had started to actually reject, because I was like, oh, she wasn't X, Y, and Z. And I've really had to start sitting back there and go, no, 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 she led me here. And I've had to really accept her. Not that I think you would have rejected her, but...
Actually, I think this feeds into something that we said when we were in the car. I said it when we were in the car recently. It's the one reason why I don't cheat on you is because you've just got so many fucking personalities. It's like having an affair with a different woman every bloody day of the week. Talk about spicing up our life.
There you go, ladies. Be a different archetype every day. Keep them guessing.
No, do you know what? It's a good point, and it's definitely a conversation that we've had a few times. And it is, obviously, I completely agree it's for the better, because I think if you hadn't have started this work, I don't think we actually would still be in a relationship. I think I would have had to like tap out, bail, jump ship earlier. I don't think I could have stuck through, just because we were both struggling. And it was actually the early stage. It was really on the back of a lot of COVID. There was just so much negativity within the relationship. But I think it was the point where a lot of people get in their relationships. Granted, we were getting to it in almost day one, where you're nitpicking at little things, and it wasn't just you. It was me. It was you. It was back and forth, and we were both in a negative way. I think in the early stage of it, I was so hopeful that it was going to be a short-lived shit show. Governmental shit show, I'm going to say.
Oh, COVID, not the relationship.
No, not the relationship. I mean, COVID. I thought it was going to be such a short-lived thing that I was like, okay, it's short term. I can deal with the pain and sacrifice that I have to stay within my X kilometers. I can't remember how many it was. 4, 5, 2.
It was 2 at some point.
Sure, it was. Okay. I stayed within that. Mr. Lawman, come and get me. There was that phase that I was like, okay, if this doesn't take some sort of change, it didn't just have to be an improvement, but if I didn't see some sort of change, it would have to have been a point I would have to walk away from my own self-preservation, and I think that is a really important factor in a relationship.
Yeah.
Especially for people that are in relationships that are struggling, they do have to think about their self-preservation, because you can invest so much of yourself in a relationship that you lose part of yourself, which I actually think that it's been only so apparent that that's something you've commented on yourself from your past relationships. You lost so much of yourself. You hadn't actually found who you were in that moment. However, putting that part a little bit to one side, but yeah, there has been such a development, I think, over who you are as a person. I knew always deep down, and I think it was something that I fell in love with in the beginning before I was willing to admit it. And Niamh is smiling because that's it's a big thing that I'm happy to know, like, speak it out now, but I just wasn't then. Yeah. And I think many women and potentially men can resonate with that. The person that knows, but they're not going to say it because they're just too stubborn to admit to something. But the things that I'd fallen off with was the power and the drive, and the
boss
bitch mode.
Yeah.
But also it was the wildness, and I don't mean wild as in like cray let's go drinking. I mean wild as in like just raw, innate, naked in the woods type of wild. Savage, wild, ancestral goddess, and I knew that was in there. I actually think that's something that I found, and again, this kind of relates back to the early days of those kind of 2.5 years, which was mostly sexual, rather than actual relationship stuff. It was mostly dictated.
But we always had a deep connection.
But there was something that I found within that, and that was something that it tapped into as our bonding source. But it is something that I could see from that earlier day, that there was a wildness that wanted to be released.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's been beautiful, and just how it's manifested it's absolutely, looking back now, I would never have guessed this would be the way that it would release.
No.
No way. I would have expected strap-ons and, you know, all other sorts of weird sexual items.
With this evening. No,
I'm joking. I'm joking. But it's been beautiful to see that there has been that kind of wilderness that has come out of you, and being accepted by yourself for who you are. That's been a big thing. What?
You said wilderness, and all I can think of is Jack Nicholson and anger management and wildebeest.
Right. Stay on track, Lily. Stay on track. But yeah, there's been that wild woman that has been released, and I'm actually, that kind of ties into that jumper and t-shirt. Do you still have your t-shirt, the green one? Yeah, a t-shirt that I had an image design. I designed an image basically, and kind of words around it, and it was all right. You being wild and free and a sea witch and all of these things, just kind of tying into your personality. But wearing it like a badge of honor type of thing. And I think it is nice to actually see you kind of embody that badge of honor now. Yeah. To be more wild and free. Not so much as, you know, running around naked in like everywhere, because you can't, because you will get arrested. Just to highlight that.
I would like to.
As much as you would like to. But you know, where there's times that we can tap into allowing you to be free, I try to. With like a few photo shoots that have happened over the past, and they're just nice things to be able to allow you to tap into that natural aspect of yourself. It has been beautiful, and I've been just so proud not only to see the growth that you've come through, but also to develop that into the coaching aspect that you have brought to people. That's been beautiful, because I know it's something that you felt so strongly about. Yeah. That is also, and that's in a beautiful, proud way, just seeing that develop over time. That has been such a monumental thing. I have had to, in myself, and I think this can be, and I think it probably relating it back to kind of where we're talking about this in this session, I have had to bring myself back into check so many times, because there are so many times where I'm like, she's running before she can walk, or she is doing this, she's doing that, or she's kind of, you know, either let me catch up if that's the path I want to go, or just slow down because I need to kind of fathom, you know, I need to deal with one aspect or the next, because sometimes it is a challenge for me to go, oh, this is what she's doing. Or I've been very open that there are certain areas that I don't necessarily resonate with. You know, there's certain aspects of things that you'll do that I'm like, I don't get it. I genuinely don't. I'm a very mathematical and logical mindset. And I don't mean mathematical as in like 1 + 1. I mean, there must be logic, because 1 + 1 = 7. But I mean like a logical mindset, which is commonly a mindset that a lot of male, the masculine has. The masculine, yeah. That's what I meant, as in the male, like the male kind of mindset has. And I don't mean that from manly mindset, but just a male mindset. I think there is a logic associated to it, and that's my thing. If I can't resonate something to logic, then what the feck is happening in the world type of situation. And there are certain things that I cannot resonate logic to completely. There are parts of it, yes, but completely I cannot resonate logic. So I don't necessarily resonate with them. I'm not going to say I don't agree with them, because I don't think that's fully right. It's just something that I don't align to, and that's okay. Yeah. That has been something that I find quite difficult. And actually, I think it hit home months and months ago about that. And it was actually during one of your ceremonies that hit me, where a certain friend asked me how I felt about a certain space. And I think it was, I can't remember, some sort of energy healing. And it wasn't necessarily something that I aligned to. Mm. Yeah. And on the back of that, it actually made me go away and think about it. And I'm like, well, if I don't, it's not that I don't want to say that I disagree with it. I'm just like, it doesn't sit with me in that way. I'm like, then how am I okay about you doing it? And I'm like, because it doesn't bloody well affect me. And it is something that you can invest in. Now, I fully believe it's very much kind of like I'm not going to say placebo because I don't think that's the correct term of it, but there is, when you fully invest in something, you will get more from it.
Yeah, of course.
If I fully believe that, if I go out for a walk and I'm like, it's crappy weather, I'm going to go and slip in the mud. The chances are I'm going to go and slip on my ass in the mud, or in dog crap. It's going to happen. You know, you kind of set up what will happen in
you create
future.
your own reality, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's the whole idea.
Because you set the mindset psychologically in your own head, and I think like if you can create the mindset that is attached to a certain healing sense or a certain way of healing or intuitive healing, and equally the person that you do that with has the same concept and construct and belief to it, then it can work for them. Do I believe that it would work for me? No.
Well, no, because you're shutting it down.
Exactly. I've shut that down.
I mean,
it's the same as a lot of medical stuff. In a lot of cases, you know, you can shut that down, you know, and then there's been countless things around different ailments. We're not going to go into them, but different ailments over the world that have been treated for the exact same treatment sense, whether they be medical or non-medical, treated the exact same way in two different people, one that believes in it, one that doesn't, and one that can potentially be healed and the other may not. It happens. It's you know, it's out there.
But again, you're creating your own reality from it. And it's what you choose. And like, obviously, you can always open that up if you ever chose to. There's not saying you don't or I wouldn't shut it down, whatever it is. But again, that shouldn't have to be a detriment to the relationship either, because I'm not impacting you in the nicest way possible. And you never know, one day you might experience it and go, oh shit, now I get it. You may never, and that's okay. And that's something I've had to face off with as well as a practitioner, because it really struck on my external validation.
Yeah.
I'm the good girl. Everybody has to see me, understand me, tell me, yes, that's good, well done, you do that. And being in the relationship where, not that you've been like, you know, that's not true or whatever like that, but it was very triggering for me at the beginning, particularly with the energy aspect of it and working with energy and intuitive healing and energy healing, where you had expressed how you felt about it, and not in a negative capacity, just what he's just spoken about there. And I was like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Or I would get very triggered by it and try and fight and try and defend it and be like, but there's X, Y, and Z studies. And then I eventually just had to remind myself that you're not saying anything about me. This wasn't to do with me. It was your belief. And that's okay. And I had to face off with that.
Exactly. And I think that's one aspect is I definitely didn't want to say, well, I don't think that's right, because because of our relationship and our dynamic, it will end up allowing you the space, or it will allow a crack in the space for your self-doubt to come in. And that's a large aspect. And sometimes that's why I need you to make decisions on your own. Also, secondly, to any man that is listening, I have to allow myself some error of changing my mind, because as I've developed, if I, let's say to day one, have decided that's not right, that doesn't work. What happens when day 120, where I've potentially changed my mind and be like, oh, it actually does work. Ooh, I'll tell you something. They don't fucking forget. They will not let you forget. They don't forget anything, and they will hold it against you forever. That's given. I
like to sometimes point it out that you have changed.
Yeah.
And look at the growth, and look at how you came to the realization.
Yeah, but you don't have to end that statement with abracadabra. Alakazam, look at that.
I told you so. But yeah, that's definitely something we've had to face off with as well in the relationship, most definitely. And it's like you still support me, and with the business, I mean, it's not been easy. Like when your other partner pays half the bills of everything, decides that they're coming out of full-time work, I mean, to go into their own self-employed business, that can't have been easy. I know it was triggering for you, but you were still so supportive of it, and not once did you ever say no. I mean, you did ask that I hold out until I felt really aligned with it, but you were also very aware that, like, I couldn't give the time I needed to the business while I worked a full-time job.
even in the evenings. Like I was so drained in the work I was doing, and I wasn't able to really show up. Whereas even in the last 3 weeks, like the business has changed dramatically.
Again, it was and I remember you telling when you first said this, and now it was very much the frustration of your corporate world that was potentially triggering the response of fuck, I need to get out of this, and I want to devote myself into my core work of what I want to do and support people in the future. I remember it was the logical mindset that I have that went, fuck, but how's that going to get paid and how's that going to get covered?
Of course.
Because look, we can't deny it, money sadly rules the world. We can't say it doesn't. It just does. It's the way of the world. Things need to be paid for. Food costs money. Until we have a commune of some sort of cult where we can make our own food money and reproduce our own poop into methane bags.
Watch this space, guys.
No, until we get there, it's sadly money does rule the world. And, bills have to be paid, rent has to be paid, costs have to be paid, electricity has to be paid. And I was scared crapless in the beginning. However, over time and, more and more discussions, and I think that's probably the most important thing that we could say ever from any of this call is, from this chat, is communication conquers all. And I think that's probably the biggest downfall for most people, where there's a lack of communication. But the fact that we had that communication and we said, okay, this is what, this is the idea of, this is what you're thinking and this is how it will happen. And, here is what will happen if this works or this doesn't and this and that. And, all of the eventualities, good, bad, the ugly, they all had to be faced, so that at least I had the resonance within myself to say, okay, it's covered. It will be covered one way or another.
Oh, yeah.
And that was it. Of course, as much as I will support, and I made this really clear, and it was very harsh whenever I first said it, because it maybe felt very harsh. And I said, I'm not supporting you in regards to, I'm not paying all the bills. I'm not being a financial support. And I remember that hit home really hard for you, even though I meant it in a good way.
And for me, I think that goes back to wounding from a family background, which I probably won't get into, but it was always the one thing I never wanted to be, was dependent on somebody else for my income, for my bills. And as much as I do know, if anything happened in the morning and I needed the money, I know you would support me if you could. And I know that. I think, though, having it completely pulled out from under me in that one sentence of like, I am not supporting you, just more felt like, I can't believe you think I'd want to become dependent on you. And then also, oh my God, I'm actually going to have no support. But actually, it's not what you really meant in terms of you wouldn't support me in that way. And as I said, I know if you had to, you would, and I obviously, I'd pay you back anyway. But it's just, yeah, I think that was kind of the one thing. And I can't believe we've spoken this far into the podcast and then decided that it could have been wrapped up in one sentence. Communication is so key.
Yeah. I think that's what a lot of people end up missing, is that classic piece of communication where you can actually talk things through, face the hard stuff, because it does need to be faced, and a lot of people end up shying away from it. We still do it at times. It's not to say that we have a perfect chain of communication. We don't. No. But there's a lot of times where the hard conversations, they might get deferred by a week, a month, a year, but you need to have the conversation. Whenever it is something that's important, you need to have the damn conversation. And I think that's what we have. Luckily, I think it's something that we've had from early on. I think I'm quite happy, and it's something I've learned within myself as being, and you can probably attest to this, I am very much in the professional world, I will cross my T's and dot my I's, and I will be as PC as within reason that I need to be. I'm not 100% PC, but I'll be pretty PC. When I'm in my personal world,
no,
there's no filter. And anyone that's listening to this that knows us knows that I don't have a filter, and I don't really care. I have no resolve to, if someone doesn't like me, the way that they take me up, and I don't really care about offending people to a degree. I don't always want to offend. No, I don't go out of my way to be a dick. But I will speak my truth, And I do say that that's a really important phrase there. It's my truth
Yeah.
in that moment. It's not the truth. It's my truth, and I will speak it out. And I'm okay with speaking it out. I don't choose to always have to speak it out. I don't feel the need to always have to speak it out. But there's sometimes where I feel I want to. That's my truth, and I don't care whether that inertly kind of ends up offending someone because it's my truth, and I think it's okay for me to have my truth. And I think there's a lot of people, and probably this would go into another podcast in the future. You know, maybe we could delve into that about being able to speak that out, because that's something that you'd be quite the opposite of sometimes. You find it hard to speak that truth.
I still struggle. I mean, I think within our relationship, and I know sometimes it grinds on you because you have called me on it where you've been like, oh, but if this was me, you'd have said something by now. But I think it's because I feel safe in the connection when I do speak it out. I know I'm not 100%. I could definitely do some work on that. And I think over time it will change. But we have always been really big on communication. And like I was saying, it's not because I need permission, right? There have been a lot of decisions that I have made throughout this relationship, both for myself, on trips I'm going on ideas I'm having, whatever it is. And it's not even that I need external validation from you. It's simply just keeping you in the know. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to know every move I'm making, but I mean, like, if there's something new coming in, or
every move I make.
They're probably the only part of the lyrics I know.
I know it's every step I take and every breath I take. I know that's somewhere in there.
I'll be watching you. It's a really creepy song.
I'll be watching you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I know.
that is kind of creepy. It's a bit stalkery.
It is, definitely.
It's pretty much you with me.
I mean, that's how I won you over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're here actually against your will. Always.
If anyone can't hear it, I've been blinking twice several times. No one has come to rescue me yet.
Yeah, most people are like, you deserve it, man. But yeah, I think it's just keeping you in the know. It's speaking, it's talking about it. And like, I've got to the point now where I can come to you and just go, I'm feeling sad today. I'm feeling angry and I don't know what it's about. I'm just not feeling good today.
It's actually what you did this morning? No, yesterday. Yeah, yesterday when we woke up.
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm sad.
Yeah.
And I was just able to, and we talked it out, and it was nothing to do with our relationship whatsoever. It was just more of like, that's how I was feeling. And, you know, a lot of the time I can stow away to my own room and deal with it, but you're also so in tune with me, you can tell when I'm off. You can tell when there's something wrong. We don't even have to be in the same room as each other. He'll just know. And I'm also very aware that when that happens, sometimes just speaking it in and being like, it's nothing to do with you. I can go deal with this myself, but I'm just letting you know. And that can have such a big difference on a relationship. And
it helps definitely understand, because with different things, whatever it might be, in some cases, I've learned so well that at some points I know when I need to support you. And this was a conversation that we actually had yesterday after this. There are times, because of, I guess, the relationship that we have, and because of the growth that we've both have, and the understanding that I have had in what you have done and the steps that you've gone through, there are definite times, and now I can see the trigger point, which is you don't need the reassurance from me or what you're looking for, even though you might actually need it and want it. The actual thing is not about me comforting you. Yeah. And I knew that that was actually the classic thing yesterday. And I was like, it's not my reassurance you need in this situation. But if you need that, if that will help somewhat towards dealing, or even comfort you somewhat, then yes. But you ask for it. You have to ask for it. And that's, again, another communication piece. But again, that's about finding your voice. And I think that's probably something for another thing in the future. Because that's a whole other bag of worms. But yeah, that was something that we brought up yesterday. It was like, you have to either ask for what you need if you need it in a moment, but then I can't always force it upon you. There's so many things, and we've come across it in other relationships out there, maybe even parts of our own relationship. Yeah. And I think in the early days, actually, it's probably something that I did do too often, and it led to definitely an area of codependence. Yeah. From both sides. My codependence was, I'm the rescuer.
I have to fix you.
Or fix it. Yeah, but I'm the rescuer, I'm the comforter, and that is my comfort, that is my safe space.
Yeah.
And that was so much in the early days of Niamh has problem, Liam cuddles and makes it all better type of thing. You know, child has boo boo, parent kisses it and makes it all better, and that was it.
Yeah,
you know,
it was. Yeah.
And I think that's actually probably led a lot into her. But now it is, because of the understanding, I can actually take that step back. Yesterday was a prime example of that, where I could step back and be like, my comfort is not what you need.
No,
It is
you're
probably
right.
something that might help, but again, it's only a soothing factor. But it's not what you need right now, and it was something else. You needed the comfort from someone or something else at that moment. And by someone, it wasn't just anyone. It was particular, but it was just different situations, and that's again over communication. I've gone to learn. I've gone to recognize that, and it has helped jointly deal with a lot of triggers from both sides, where we can understand each other to that extent.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I feel also with the communication piece, it's just keeping the other person in the know, because you obviously deal with emotions very differently to how I deal with situations, right? So you coming to me and be like, I just actually need space. I just actually need space is a big thing. Rather than you just going quiet on me and going missing or saying nothing.
You don't like that, I find. I did that for 2.5 years.
I mean, yeah, trigger. Or like, even with me, to say to you, actually, I need to go and actually have some time by myself, which I would have always really struggled with asking for. And the reason was because I always felt that if I said to you, I need space, that you would be triggered by that. So through it, I used it as an excuse to suppress myself and not ask, and then I would explode. Whereas now I know it doesn't trigger you, because you're like, if you need space, you need space. Take it.
As long as you explain
it.
Explain the space that you need, because different people have different versions of space.
Yeah,
Again,
space is so different.
The communication really does have to be sometimes detailed communication, because if you say, I need space, and I think this is another classic thing, and well, sorry, it's not a classic thing. This is me stereotyping, but I mean this in a jokey way. You know, what a woman says and what a woman means can often be two different things.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that goes two ways, and I don't just mean that for women by no means. Sometimes what people say and what they actually mean in that moment is two different things. Sometimes when I say space, that means just give me a couple of hours to like just go back to what I was doing, whether that be, it's often work. You know, I drown myself in work or go to the gym or whatever. Just put my head in the sand for a few minutes, or don't come into like my literal personal space in that moment. I don't want to be smothered in comfort in that moment. And that's often actually what I mean more than anything.
Yeah.
When I ask for space, I like being around you, but even I could be getting my space, but we could be sitting on the sofa watching a movie together and cuddled up. That actually is no problem. But just don't start being clingy. As soon as the clinginess of attention comes in, then I'm like, nah, now you're invading my space. But again, it's the understanding of what that space means. And there's been a lot of times where like, I need space, but your space actually means that you need to be held, or your space means I need a couple of hours totally on my own.
Yeah.
You know, it can drastically vary at times. And again, that's another communication piece of explaining what you mean by space, if you can figure it out.
Yeah. But like, that also comes down to the whole sex thing as well with women and men. Like, you know, if you're not communicating in your relationship on a day-to-day basis, are you bringing communication into the sex life? Because this is a lot of the time where we see the sex life fall out of alignment with a lot of couples, because they're not communicating in their relationship. The likelihood of them communicating in the bedroom is probably quite low as well, let's say, right? I could be wrong. That might not be for every couple. But, you know, as a woman, I mean, you know my body quite well. We have no issues with that. But I know I have become, I feel safer. And I know you trust me anyway. I feel safer now asking for things that I wouldn't have before. And it's not that you wouldn't have taken okay to it. I was just always taught that that's not okay to do as a woman. And the more our communication in the relationship has made me feel safer, I feel safer now speaking out in the bedroom. And not in a bad way, but it's more of like, oh, I'd like to try this. Or, you know, if you've said, oh, I'd like to try something, whatever it is, or even during, if I'm like, no, slow down or go faster or whatever it is, kind of like a roller coaster, I feel better and safer vocalizing that now. And I think that's me learning to speak out my needs and my wants. And you can either meet them or you don't have to. It's not an expectation, but I'm sure most men will.
Nobody told me that there was a choice not to. Why can't I be like many other selfish men and just go out for what I want in the bedroom? Nobody told me I had to do what you wanted.
Well, now let's not start going into that hole.
Or do we?
Who knows? But yeah, I think that's also the thing that brings it around, is down to the communication even in the bedroom. And feeling safe in that, because if you're not communicating on basic daily needs or daily feelings or wants, like how can you feel safe in doing that in the bedroom if you're not feeling seen and heard by yourself or your other half? And I've heard this from, you know, people in my past or even in my own past relationships where like you'd come in, you'd be having a conversation and you could tell by them they're not listening to you. And it gets to a point where you start zoning out completely because you're like, well, if they're not listening to me, why should I listen to them? You know, or it's like, oh, I just won't even bother then. I won't tell them how my day was. And actually, that's another very integral thing I think we've had to learn in the relationship is like you were saying, the rescuer, right? Or I like to call it the fixer. Again, this is probably stereotyping, but I mean this in a masculine, feminine kind of energy space, right? The masculine wants to fix things.
I don't know.
It's
your feminine energy wants to feel like if I'm not feeling well, you have the mummy energy.
Yeah,
that's a fixing energy.
But even okay, so either way, there's always a kind of somebody who wants to fix things
in a moment. Yeah.
And particularly when it's your other half or it's a friend, you obviously want to make them feel better. That's a part of you, I suppose. It's an external thing, but you always have that. But actually, sometimes I just want to be heard, or I don't even need the validation. I just want to speak it into the space and have somebody hold it. I don't necessarily need the advice, and it's the same with you. There's times where you've come to me with things and you're like, I don't want the advice. I just want to speak it. I just want to speak it. You don't have to say anything to me. And I know I've said this to so many of my friends, like I'm the type of person that if you need to get something out and you don't need a response and you don't need me to give you advice on it, just send me a rant. Just send it to me on WhatsApp and then say, it's just a rant. You don't even need to listen to it. Because sometimes it's actually just speaking it into the space rather than feeling like you're on your own or there's four walls you're talking to. I think that's another thing as well. It's actually also understanding when the person's actually looking for the advice or they actually simply just want to speak it out. And it's not for you to deal with, advise on, fix, whatever it is. It's more just, they're like, I just need to get that off my chest.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like, in fairness, it can come up with anything. I think it comes up very often, like work.
Yeah.
Work's such a common one because you can't, usually, in most cases, you cannot tell someone at work to go fuck off. But you want to. You want to so badly. And you want to say so many things. Or I think so many people have probably done this one. They type out an email that has every expletive under the sun and what they can go and do to themselves and how they can go and die and all of this stuff. And then you just press delete. And, you know, that's so common. We've all tried that tactic. Sometimes it doesn't quite fit the bill. But then whenever you have someone that you can rant to, whether it be a loved one or, you know, family, friend type of thing, but you have that connection with, that you can do that and be like, this is just a rant because I need to get this out into the world. Otherwise I'm going to explode.
Yeah.
Yeah. If of course you can't channel it into something.
Yeah.
That's the other aspect, is some people can then take that and kind of not necessarily internalize, but channel it.
Well, channel it out the body, whether it's through art or going to the gym or, you know, whatever people have as through their own expression or creative expression. Scream. I mean, that's one of my new favourite things.
Dance, cry. That they're okay versions of expression. If it's not getting it out, ranting about it, cry, scream, shout, stamp your feet. throw a tantrum. I wouldn't necessarily do it in public because people are probably going to think you're having a fit. But do you know what? Do what needs to work for you in a safe environment for you.
Yeah. And I think that's, a really big take home.
But again,
I think I've had to navigate. And every relationship is different. I mean, everybody's relationship with themselves is different. Everybody, like, I could have 4 friends who all have their own different relationship with one another. And I have a different relationship with them. And then the group has a different dynamic when we're together.
Yeah.
And depending on who's who in what group or what amalgamation of a show up, like even that relationship, it has its own dynamic every single time. And it's the same with every relationship. It's all trial and error. There is no quick fix. There is no, here's a handbook. And it also comes down to people's triggers.
Yeah.
Like, your triggers are not my responsibility, but I can hold the space for them if I have triggered you. And also, along with that, I can have, what's the word? I can have respect around them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know obviously your biggest trust issue within relationships. Obviously, it's not something that I would necessarily go and do anyway, but I'm aware of it.
Yeah, it's definitely changed now.
I can look after it. I can mind it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it's not at my detriment because of what it is. But what I'm trying to say is, like, my triggers, when you trigger me, that's not your responsibility to hold, like, to not trigger me. You don't go, oh, I'm not going to say that to her because that's going to trigger the crap out of her. It's more of like, okay, I'm very aware I've just triggered her. I can hold that space for her. Or I can ask what she needs from me right now. Is it for me to leave her alone? Or does she need me to hold the space so she can work through it? And that sometimes can be really helpful as well, because I think sometimes we take on each other's traumas, and there is trauma bonding. I mean, I can look back at our relationship and say, yeah, it was probably trauma bonding that brought us together. And I know a lot of people, you'll see it on social media where they're like, oh, a trauma bond can never change. I mean,
I don't agree. I think
bullshit, like,
because both people, anyone can change. I think actually something else that brings back into communication, and I think this is probably a common thing, especially people unlike us. You started in this journey after we had already got together.
Yeah.
And there is plenty of people out there that are already in relationships and decide on this journey and path. However, they decide not to include their partner because, they won't understand, or they won't support me in the way that I need. You don't know until you communicate.
But it's the choice, isn't it?
It's a choice. It's absolutely. But then don't rule them out before, just because it's something they haven't been able to deal with in the past, or something that they may not be always ready for. There is no reason you cannot ask and communicate to request that type of support from them. For example, I don't like tears. I realize it's a very closed mindset. I don't cry. I have not cried for a very long time. I'm not going to specify how long, but it's a very long time. I have my own reasons. It's been many, many years. I'm contemplating. It's actually almost half of my life now. It's probably the last time I remember being in tears. I have my own reasons for it, and it works for me in my mindset. And there is a logic to it in my mindset, and it goes back to that logical mindset. There's a logic to it in my mindset. Therefore, I understand why tears need to happen. I understand why someone gets upset when someone cries, but there are certain areas in life where I'm like, why are you crying? Why it doesn't need to happen. And I realize it's really close-minded in some ways. And also, like, screaming, it also brings back triggers to my own childhood upbringing. But screaming is a thing for me that's just like, just don't. It sets me on edge. It's like razor blades or walking on glass. That's what it feels like to me, and that's the only feeling I could describe it in my body. However, and this is something where we just spoke about a few minutes ago, the release that sometimes people need and you need is tears. And it was actually tears, showing your emotion was actually one of your real strong superpowers coming into the space.
Yeah.
Over maybe recently, as you've dealt with some of the anger or kind of depth of anger stuff, has been screaming and rage that you just need to get out. Luckily now we live in a much more secluded space that you can actually do it the odd time. Yeah. Now it's something out of respect. Because it's something I really, it puts my kind of back up against the wall, really brings back a lot of old kind of deep rooted triggers. It's not something you do all the time. Granted, it's not something you should or need to do all the time. I don't think someone needs to do it all the time, but it's something that you sometimes do. Granted, you'll give me the heads up, or you'll say, look, I might scream, I may or may not. There's a lot of times where you have now, like, if you cry, you'll cry either in my hands or in my arms, where I can give you that support and comfort of a safe space. But again, it's the communication. I guarantee you, if that was 2 years ago, or maybe even a little bit longer, I'd have been like, fuck no.
I know. Yeah.
I could not cope with that. I could not deal with it. I would not do it. However, like I said, just because you've been in a relationship with someone doesn't mean they cannot evolve themselves to support you in such that way, and maybe overcome some of their own maybe fear about it. I don't think it's necessarily fear, but
It's your own traumas.
Your own traumas, your own dealings with it, and your own resentment to it potentially,
Yeah.
And again, that comes back to communication. You need to, don't be scared of asking for something. Whether you get a yes or a no, you then have to deal with it your own way, but don't be afraid of continuously asking in the future. I don't mean every, day after day, but allowing a person to give themselves time to evolve.
But that I think we touched on that at the beginning. For me, was this idea that, like, for a while there, and I could understand if at the time you probably were quite frustrated, there was a while there that because my trajectory was so fast, I couldn't see your growth because it wasn't like mine. So because you weren't exactly where I was, it was almost like I omitted it because of what was coming through for me at the time, and what was being reflected to me and what was being spoken to me as well. I was being quite influenced at the time. And I remember taking a step back one day and really actually just looking and thinking to myself, you know what, and even now, as I sit here now, if I was the woman I was when we first met, not even 6 years ago, if you even look at like the 3.5 years ago mark, you would, no way. And I probably wouldn't have gone into a relationship with you. We wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, if we were, yeah.
Yeah, if we weren't together now, sorry, if I was where I am now and you were where you still were, or even the other way around, right? I don't think that would have happened.
But then, let me ask you this. Is that not the exact same thing that we just brought up earlier, that sometimes you need to change your expectations? Someone is always looking for someone at the similar level.
But what I mean is, I think I would have been triggering you because I would have challenged you at the time. Like the way I am now.
Oh yeah, it would have forced us away a lot quicker.
That's what I'm, no, that's what I'm thinking. That's more of what I'm talking about. Whereas, like, that's how much I know you have grown, or your growth has taken off, because you are able to hold that space for me.
Does this make me a grower and not a shower?
You are a grower, not a shower. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it. Good night. I mean, I don't know if they have a 2x2 explicit on Spotify. I don't want to get banned. But yeah, I think that is also quite evident as well, is that just because your partner isn't where you are doesn't mean that they haven't done some of the work already. Because as I said, like, you're able to hold that space. I watch you hold that space for other women.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have, and I would be happy for Liam to hold space for women and men. It wouldn't bother me, but particularly for women who need that masculine, like, there would be no jealousy there between us. Whereas a few years ago, I'd probably, like, that would have been a hard no for me. Whereas now I'm like, no, like, that's perfectly okay, because I can also see your growth. Yeah. And, like, that's also meaning, like, if a woman wanted to scream or cry, like, I know you would hold that. You know? And that's a testament to it too. We have, well, for the relationship to continue on, I had to grow. And we had to grow together. Because, I mean, we are all here as humans to grow and experience things. We do it every day, even unconsciously. We don't even notice the little ways we grow, because we're more like rivers. You know, we run, we get bigger, we get smaller, we grow, we contract, we expand. Like if we all were kind of like a puddle, we become stagnant and a little smelly.
Or more importantly, like a river. And actually, it's something whenever we were walking through Barna Forest
Oh yeah.
the other day, and there's little streams that run through there. Anyone that's potentially in the Galway region that might listen to this will understand. But there's a few little streams that run through the place, especially with the amount of rain that's been coming at the moment. But there's a few that run through parts of the forest that shouldn't maybe naturally be there or would have gone a particular way. But it's quite funny to see that they should, because man created a path for them in one particular path, but they're not flowing in that path. And a river will never flow in the direction that we want it to.
Yeah.
It will create its own path naturally. You can push and force and, forge it into whatever path you might want it to go, but eventually that river will go whatever direction it wants to go.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for people as well. You can hammer and forge and almost beat into submission as much as you think physically possible, but there is no stopping that beautiful creation going in the direction that it needs to go in for its own self.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, eventually it overflows. It, as you said, it goes around. It finds some way to become itself, to be its free-flowing self. And I think that's the biggest lesson, I think, in general. I don't even think that's to do with relationships. I just believe what you said there is for everybody out there.
Yeah, and I think within relationships, kind of relating it back to that, I think in relationships, it should be, I believe the other person in the other half of the relationship, or how each person should support the others, is they should see that there is a natural flowing course and you can help guide that and support it. You can see that it's going in whatever direction, and you can strengthen the barriers or the foundations around that river as it stands in its beautiful direction. Not to prohibit, not to throw a dam in the way, not to throw any sort of rock in the middle of it to divert it off path, because eventually it will always come back to the true course.
Yeah.
Talking of those, like you had mentioned earlier, talking of like the two paths of someone's life, of people's lives, they will eventually always come back to where they need to be.
Well, yeah,
there's nothing
will bring you back.
You might look left, you might look right, it'll always bring you back true, in the path that you need to be going in.
Yeah.
And that goes for anyone on a journey, whether you're the one on a journey, whether you're the other person supporting someone being on a journey and maybe not on that journey yourself, or whether you're both on journeys. Those journeys might be in the same direction, they might be in different directions, but they can potentially come back to each other. It's not to say that they always will, because it's not to say that, everything will work out and it'll be all right, because that's not always the case. Sometimes it is, the most healthy thing is to be like, I respect you, but you need to go your own way. And a long time ago, I guess, by a long time ago, a few years ago in our relationship, that was potentially the path that we'd have to go. But in essence, what you can do is support the other one in that moment, in that relationship, be like, okay, that's the path you're on. Great, I'll support that. And I hope that continues on its beautiful course, and that we both come back together in whatever future that might be.
Yeah. I mean, we're saying all this, and sure, we don't know what's ahead of us.
No, we don't, because it could go anyway. But
it could, but that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I would absolutely hope that we can continue on a path and course together. There's absolutely no saying that that's definitely. And does that mean that if for instance, touch wood, that doesn't happen, as I tap on my head and the tables and every other piece of wood that I can see, touch wood, that kind of doesn't happen? Of course, because will I be upset? Absolutely. That would tear me apart. That would absolutely break me in two. I'll build myself back up, but it will break me in two in the interim. But I would hope that our paths can continue on that same way. And where there is ebbs and flows and all of that kind of stuff, I would still hope that it will bring us together. There has been parts where you have gone off at a different pace to me, and there's been parts where I've needed space. And that has been our own individual paths where we can loop back in. We can come home and we can cuddle up in bed almost every night together. That's been important. That's our coming together again, and finding that time to come together again. Yeah. That's like a date night tonight.
Yeah. And that's kind of where all this started, and probably where it's all going to end.
Yeah.
But, I definitely think, I don't think this is going to be the last of Liam. I definitely think we could do more podcasts on. Probably even go into certain.
We have to throw a vote. Let the people vote.
Let the people vote.
Let the people vote. They can vote me out or they can vote me in.
I don't really care. I enjoyed this. I do this for me, nobody else. But yeah, no, I just want to say thank you for coming on. As I said, I'm sure we'll see you again. And
I should hope so. You live with me.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. Thank you for everything and just being you. And I'm grateful it's you I'm on this journey with. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see and keep everybody updated on the wonderful world. And I mean, you know, I'm sure people are coming away from this and being like, oh wow, that was a lot of information. I can't even remember what we started talking about. I just know it's flowed because that's what we're like. This is like a daily conversation with us, to be fair. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, and I'm sure you'll be on it again, and I love you. And yeah. And for everybody else out there, I want to say thank you so much for listening. As I said, he will probably be a reoccurring guest, and I know this is probably a lot longer than my normal podcast. My solo episodes will be shorter because I think when I have people, it's just so beautiful to give them as much time and space to express whatever's coming through. And as you know, I do everything in flow. This wasn't rehearsed. We didn't even have a fucking topic 5 minutes beforehand. So this just went all over the place. But I hope everybody has a beautiful week, and I will speak to you all soon. Sending you all love.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Unbound Woman podcast. I just absolutely love when I receive your feedback, your shares on Instagram, comments letting me know, your DMs, your emails, saying how much you've enjoyed this episode or just the podcast in general. And it really just lights me up and allows me to continue recording and gives women a voice here. I love sharing with you all the beautiful women that I come into contact with to raise their awareness, pass on their message, for you to meet other women in this space. Maybe you resonate with them, maybe you love the message that they have, maybe you for the first time ever heard something and you had like a mic drop or a light bulb moment, and that's what this beautiful podcast is all about. So I would love if you could share this podcast again, as I said, on Instagram, email me, give me some comments, provide a review, or just simply share it with somebody. Share it with your mum, with your aunts, with your friends, with your colleagues, with whoever you think this will benefit, because the more we spread the word, the better. The more information women can have in their hands for free, because it's their goddamn fucking right, the better. And that's what this podcast is here for, to bring that awareness in all different ways. So thank you once again for just being absolutely fucking amazing, for showing up with me every time I release an episode. And what I would like to offer you is, if you go to my website, www.spiralwithniamh.com, I would love if you could sign up for my newsletter, and what you receive is a free Create Your Own Pleasure Practice Guide. This beautiful guide was created by me on how to create your own daily ritual or pleasure practice, and how to bring pleasure into your life on a more regular basis. Because you know what? You fucking deserve it. You are a queen, you are a goddess, and the time is now. And I send you all my love, and I'll speak to you all next week.